Hi everyone, welcome back to the Scrapbooking Photographer. Linda's my name, and today we're going to be looking at the stamp of the month for this month, which is March. And we'll go right to the back page of the current catalogue and you'll see it here. It's called Precious Moments. So it's very down under themed with kangaroos and koalas, and I guess these little guys are echidnas, but in New Zealand we could double them up as to use as hedgehogs. We've had a hedgehog roaming around the backyard lately, so I've taken some photos of him, so this will be quite handy to use on a page just to demonstrate that. So what I'm going to do is use some of these icons to make some embossed stamps. So we'll put the catalogue to one side. What I've done is I have a slimline card and I have the standard size card also. I've also taken another slimline card and cut it into two, because I often find that it's handy to have a nice little gift card that isn't a big statement, just a nice little gift card to pass on to somebody with a gift. You can make an envelope for it, or you can use it without an envelope, so you don't get hung up by the fact that there isn't an envelope. It's easily fixed. So I'm going to see if I can come up with designs for these 4 cards. So what I'm going to be using, as I mentioned, the main focus is the stamp of the month, but I'm also going to be using some imperfect patterns and some old embossing folder and some older stamps as well. Well, that's a current one, but I'm not sure I'm going to use that, but some older stamps as well, to just show it doesn't always have to be new and glitzy that we use. We've all got lots of things in our cupboards and our drawers that we can use on any project at all. So let's mix it up a bit and see how we go. So I've gone ahead with the slimline card and cut out a piece of linen, which I think will go really nicely with the silver embossing. So that is 8.5 long by 3.5 that way. So what I'm going to put on top of there are 3 different squares. So we'll have a icon there, one there, and then the sentiment in the middle. So you can see that the cardstock is double-sided, so we've got a lighter side and a darker side. So we're using the darker side today, but if you wanted to mix it up, you could turn it over and use the lighter side. So, you know, just lots of variations. But what I'm going to do today on the backstock, because I don't have a slimline embossing folder, I could emboss it, but I'm going to just put a little bit more silver things on it. And to do that, I'm going to use this stamp set of imperfect patterns. So as you can see, it's been used rather a lot in the past, but what I'm going to be concentrating on today are these little dots. So it's going to look like splatters, hopefully. So if we peel that off and just get an idea of where we want it, we want some down here, some more up there, and maybe just a couple through here. So to do the embossing, I'll take those off. And to do the embossing, I've got a spare sheet of paper over the top of my Versamat with the sponge side up. So let's get organised. I'll put this onto the block. So it's a good idea to use a block that your stamp just fits onto. Before we start, we have to wipe this down with our anti-static pouch. This is something that I often forget, which is always annoying. So it's really worthwhile doing that, and it just makes sure that what you're sticking down with embossing powder doesn't fly off and stick where you don't want it. Okay, so we're just going to put this in those places that we talked about before. So one there, and rotating the stamp so that it sits nicely in the corner. One there. 3, 4, and we might just put one down here for good measure. Okay, so before we get carried away, we'll put some silver powder onto that and just see what it looks like. So, liberal spreading, because you're going to catch any spare stuff on the paper underneath. Just shaking it to see where it lands. Okay, so we might put a little bit more up there. It's really handy too to have a brush. You can just get rid of anything that's in the wrong place. Another shake would have got rid of that. We might just put a bit more there, there and there. So coming down here with our stamp. It can go off the side of the edge as well. So once you've got some there, you'll be able to see where you're going, which makes life a lot easier. And a bit more over here. And also down the bottom. Okay. Okay, and that looks pretty good. Just tidy up that corner there. And because they're imperfect patterns, if you end up brushing off something that's supposed to be there, it really doesn't matter because it's all imperfect. Okay, so we'll put that one aside, ready to blow dry in a moment. Now we'll just pick up all this leftover powder. Okay, so the stamp's clean and put away. So we'll go on to the icons, and again remembering to rub them down with the anti-static pouch. So I've made these squares 2.5 inches each, and I did check that the stamps that we want to put on there will fit. So and they'll line up nicely on that slimline card. So the two that I'm going to use are the koalas, and because we've got koalas facing in different directions, we'll have one at each end, so they're looking into each other and into the sentiment in the middle. So we're going to stamp him there and him here. So there we have our 4 pieces. Now just to bring them a little bit more to life, I'm going to use the metallic marker You may have seen me do this before. This is such a great and easy tip to do. So using the end of these markers are a little bit like a brush. So if you line it up, can you see that? You can get the card in between the two. And just turn it around. Effectively painting the edges silver that will match what you've just embossed. So to put these squares on top, I'm just going to use some foam tape to raise them up off the background, and I'm cutting a piece of foam tape the right length and then dividing it right down the middle so that we can get two sides out of one. And a shorter piece for the other two sides. Again, just cutting it up the middle. So remembering that this is 8.5 inches long, if we put it somewhere where on the pad where the overlap from the inch is the same, so we've got 3/4 of an inch that side and 3/4 of an inch that side, we can then work out where the middle is, which is underneath the 7 and the 8. So we'll stick that in there. And I'm just going to use the T-square along the bottom with that straight. Use the T-square to line the others up. So just to add a finishing touch to this one, I'm just going to add some little hearts that are also on this imperfect patterns. So the next cards I'm going to do are these two, which are half a slimline card. So this one I'll do portrait, landscape, and this one I'll do portrait. So I'm going to do them with a French vanilla background, and to start with, that's going to be embossed. So using the embossing folder I've chosen, you can see on here that there's a, well, hopefully you can see there's a rose pattern here that I really want down the bottom. So I'm just going to place the piece of card in where I want it to emboss and put that through the Cuttlebug. So that's been through the Cuttlebug now, and bring it out, and you can see it's quite a pretty rose type pattern, and that just brings us with the leaves coming down here, which will, as I say, be predominantly covered anyway. So I'm going to do the same for this one, but because this is going to be portrait, I'm going to put this in a different way just to make sense. Taking that one out. It has a similar look, it's just going the other way. So I'm going to give these the same treatment as I gave the last ones. So that just gives it a nice golden edge around the outside, and we're going to stick those straight onto the card. Now going back to our stamp of the month, this time we're going to use the little hedgehog. Now I've got two here. One I have already embossed, and he doesn't have the butterfly because I masked it off, and this one does have the butterfly. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to just make him a little square without the butterfly. Because this little chap isn't quite a square, I've made him slightly more oblong, and we'll put him on the oblong shape, and we'll pop his little butterfly up the top, but we'll give him the same treatment as we've done for the background. So here we've got our echidna sitting here, and we're going to use the sentiment thanks bunches, and put his butterfly up here, so effectively separating him from the butterfly. So I'll show you how we do that. So here he is here, and we just want the butterfly this time. So we're going to use some masking tape, which is low tack. Just put it over the top, so that when we put him on the glue, none of the glue will go onto the echidna. And before we stamp, take that off because it's got glue on it, and then we'll just pop him there. Okay, now on the same piece of cardstock we're going to put the sentiment, which is thank you bunches. So just make sure that I've got it straight. Okay, and some gold powder over both now. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've trimmed those up, and I've gone around the edge again with the gold metallic marker. So they're both like that. Now what we're going to do is put this one here, and this little butterfly is going to come up here. So they're all going to be linked. We just need to overlap them slightly so that we're still going to see some embossing behind. So we're going to use some raised tape, some foam tape, again to put this little guy on first, and again I'm going to cut it to length and then right up the middle to make it just go, well, twice as far really. So by putting this one on first, we get a idea of where he goes, and we'll bring him in a little bit from the corner. Because it's such a small sentiment, we've got room to play with. Now the trick here is, because we want him to overlap, we need to put some just some double-sided tape on this end and some foam tape on that end. So make sure when you turn it over you get the right end. So this end is double-sided tape and a tiny little bit of foam tape at the other end. Okay, So then take that off. Now we've got this guy, the butterfly, coming in. I'll just get you closer up, hang on. So we want this little guy to be roughly the same distance away from the corner as the bottom so that it flows. So, and we want them to overlap. So this one is just going to come there. And the same with this one, he's going to just have a little bit of sticky tape here and just a tiny little piece of foam tape on the other end. And that means that everything will be lifted up at the same height and all stuck together. So with the portrait card, we'll use the other little echidna that I had already made, and I'll trim it down so that it fits, and then we'll just do a square or a similarly sized sentiment underneath. So I'll just trim this and gold edge it, and then we can see what will fit underneath. Okay, and using foam tape, again, I do like the way that the foam tape highlights what we're trying to put on there. And I think this little guy might be a "You Brighten My Day." It's nice sometimes just to give a card to somebody for no reason at all, and it does make their day. So putting them on so that there's an equal distance around the outside. The French vanilla that's just going to fit in there with "You Brighten My Day" on there. And so now we'll just pop that on there on some raised tape. That's number 3. Okay, and so for the last one, I'm going to use our little kangaroo and Joey here. And I've made this piece that we're going to emboss on. I've made it just a little narrower than the card, and we'll introduce some glitter paper down the side there. But first, let's just put this one on a block. Okay, so we've got this one stamped and embossed, and I'm going to put him on a piece of silver glitter paper. And at the moment, this one is either ready to the same length, so it could go on one side, but I think it looks better with the glitter all the way around. So I'm going to bring this in, and we've got enough room there to trim it. So I'm going to trim it so that it's got an even space all the way around it. So rather than using the paint markers this time, we're going to use the glitter paper. Alright, so I've trimmed that up so that it's the same all the way around. So we need to make this piece the same size as the card. So that looks very blingy and pretty and simple, so simple to make. So we'll stick this on. I'm going to use some of the Tombow ink here and just put it in a bit from the side so that it's got room to squish out. Down. Another good use for the embossing blocks. And then I'll also use this glue on the centerpiece because they never stick very well to the glitter paper, which kind of puts me off using the glitter paper, which is a shame. So hopefully this works well. Put it on the right way up. Once that's had a chance to dry, we'll take the blocks off, and there we have a nice simple card which we'll decorate up with a little bit of bling with the clear sparkles. So we don't need too many. I'm just going to put a couple over here. So when we look back at our 4 cards, we've got the one we've just done, which has used the glitter paper as a backdrop to coordinate with the embossing. So that's an easy fix. We've also used the silver with stamping some random shapes in the background to give them something to rest on. And we've also done these two with the embossing on the background and the gold markers around the outside, layering the sentiments there and separating them here. And we've also used some masking tape to separate the butterfly from the echidna. So I hope you found those 4 techniques around embossing useful. If you liked it, please subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching. I'm going to do a small video on colouring as well with these stamps, so watch out for that one. Thanks everyone.